inside the all-new House of Public Discourse Radio.com. The House is an area in social media where individuals can come together to discuss societal issues, and from that discussion influence political action. Welcome to the House,
where our house is your house.
Good evening, House of Public Discourse Forum. Welcome to the Progressive Talk Zone. I'm your host, Johnny Hill. We are freezing cold here in the Motown Get Down. Things are really rough, but no one in America has had a worse or rougher couple of days than the folks down in Texas. And our focus tonight here in the Progressive Talk Zone is the Texas freeze, the Texas power disaster. Were there lessons learned? And our opinion, probably not. But I want to offer a disclaimer here. We're not painting a broad brush saying that everybody in Texas is culpable for what happened. There is responsibility because we, the people, elect our elected officials. And the people of Texas elected Greg Abbott. They elected Rick Perry. They elected Dan Crenshaw. They elected Tim Boyd from Colorado City, who told everybody to quit complaining about the cold weather. We published an article today in the House of Public Discourse, and we're kind of go over that article. We are expecting some guests to come in. We've got Luecynthia Keener, who may or may not be able to be here. She lives in Houston. She is a host of a very popular show. It's Bernie Time, and she's a beloved grassroots political activist. She's down to earth, straightforward, and it would be really wonderful if we could get her on the program tonight. She's trying to get here, but they're just now crawling out of their cocoon, if you will, in Texas. The power disaster was a natural disaster, compounded a human-made disaster due to the state's independence attitude and secessionist tendencies. Several people were killed during the power outages across Texas a week ago, and millions got left without power or water, and some for days. And it's my understanding that a lot of people still do not have water as of the airing of this broadcast. The Texas governor, one Greg Abbott, pushed nonsense like there's a no end to fossil fuel use, while warning the Green New Deal would be the end of civilization as we know it. The state's former governor, Rick Perry, has suggested that using more renewable energy will lead to socialism. And there we go with that word. They, right-wing radicals and people in general who have very little understanding of what democratic socialism is like to throw around these terms.
Which terms?
How you doing, Chris?
Which terms?
I don't know what you thought. You popped in on me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it said no. You were talking about the terms, so I missed what those defined terms were.
Yeah, well, the Texas, what terms? I'm sorry, you got me confused because you just popped in, and I don't. Which terms? Or what are you talking about, Chris? What do you need clarified?
Well, down in Texas, when they were supposed to winterize all this stuff, and they were told us over 20 years ago, and they decided that was too expensive, and they were being bossed around. They were actually being bullied, they said, by the federal government to winterize just in case there could ever be like a snowstorm. So they didn't do it. So they ended up with these people who were able to snag people and charge them as much as like $17,000 for the last 4 or 5 days, because it's a free market pay-as-you-go system. Which
Well,
means that they were basically able to rob their own customers.
Well, the blather from Texas politicians is of no help to scores of Texans, my brother, who spent
Oh my
long
God!
who spent long hours and days freezing. I mean, the media coverage that I've run across, my brother, the media coverage that I've run across has obscured the real reasons for the catastrophe and the distracted attention from an important lesson, and that the energy delivery system, not just in Texas, but nationwide, needs to undergo a significant overhaul to withstand the future shocks
Yeah, they're
fulfilled.
getting killed because they're getting killed in Kansas, and also I believe to the east of them, they've got another place. I think it was Omaha, where they're also getting socked with high costs from these. I guess they're kind of semi-independent contractors. From the Republicans privatizing the energy
Right.
grid.
Well,
Which is
it's another one of those spotlight moments that we've been talking
yep.
about on this program.
There we go.
We when we started this program just before the elections, we were talking about Georgia,
Yep.
and Georgia was a spotlight moment, and then Trump trying to steal the election through the courts. We talked about that. That was a spotlight moment. Them rushing the White House, his inciting of a riot. I don't care what the 43 senators, some of those 43 senators did not say Trump was not guilty. They said they came up with a loophole or whatever for not.
That he was already a private citizen. The thing is, we impeached him when he was still president. The conviction in the Senate is part 2. He'd already been impeached. So they're lying through their teeth.
It was another spotlight moment. And then, our good friend over at Truth Bomb Activist, Suzanne Murphy, she calls it watershed moments. I think what we saw in Texas, and this is what we want to talk about tonight, Chris, is the bravado. It's the bravado.
The celebration. Celebrate ignorance.
Yes. The Texas power grid reflects on how Texas's bravado contributed to the mess, is what I'm trying to convey here. A natural disaster was exuberated by the state's well-known independent attitude and secessionist tendencies. They couldn't get any help from the federal government. They couldn't get any help because they've got their grid shut off from the rest of the world.
It's not connected to any other state. It's a standalone, and it is basically, what I've heard, obsolete and falling to pieces. I mean, regardless of not being winterized, which any child would have made sure that they did, just in case, God forbid, there was a bloody snowstorm. And of course it was, because it was bound to be one at some point. What did they do? They decided that the death toll and the inconvenience for 4 or 5 million people was a price that they were willing to pay. But they didn't pay it. The people of Texas paid it. I think that's why I bet Beto's going to be the governor. I bet that Beto makes governor on this.
Yeah, he would be. I think he's got a window of opportunity there. I was living in Houston. When Greg Abbott was running for governor, when Rick Perry's terms were up. And I advocated and I worked my tail off for Wendy Davis, who was a tremendous, very, very well qualified candidate.
As I recall, that was a very close campaign.
It was a very tightly fought, very nasty very
Oh yeah. Oh
nasty
yeah. Oh yeah.
campaign. I mean, it was ugly. Greg Abbott is a vile man. And I do not like to throw
He's
superlatives out like that, but I'm
a money
telling you,
grubbing Philistine. A money grubbing Philistine.
well, Chris, to your point, my brother, during the days of extreme temperature drop, massive
Right.
power failure, and
Right.
shrinking food supply, Texas, 29 million people had no idea when exactly power, heat, and water would be restored, or if the deep freeze disaster would come to an end, which we now know that the temperatures, thank God, have started to come back to normal. Now, I myself lived in Houston on and off for about 15 years.
Oh my
Okay.
God. Well, you must know it. You must know it like the
I
back of
know
your
that.
hand.
My first job there was I was a pest control operator, and that was before the internet, and we had to use what they called a key map to get around town. I know Houston pretty well,
I guess so.
and what people don't realize is that Houston, uh,
It's huge.
and, and it's more, the freeze happened all over statewide, and I only bring up Houston
Yeah.
because I know what's going on there. Normally, this time of year, my brother, I'm walking around in short pants and a tank top in,
Exactly.
in
Exactly. Yeah.
Houston.
You're waiting for spring. You're waiting for spring. I mean, it's like, it's already getting balmy. Mm-mm.
That's
Not good
but
here. Not good
but
here.
angry Texans have not stayed silent. Many blame him and his Republican government for not warning them about power outages, which have hit historical lows in Texas, which we all know so well now. No
Well,
one, no
I mean,
one's
it's like,
heard of anything like this over 70 years, according to some of our sources. And buildings and homes are just not insulated against cold weather.
well,
Salted
guess what's going to
streets
happen
and
when it gets warm?
plows.
All those pipes are all going to burst. All those pipes are going to burst.
They've already
All of them.
burst. They've already
Yeah.
burst.
So now that as it thaws out, it's going to be a flood.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
going to be
that's why I'm getting
disaster.
to that. I'm getting to that. I want to talk about
Oh my,
that.
oh
The
my God.
salt,
Here we go.
yeah, but up north, it's not unusual to see salted streets and plows. But
Oh yeah.
in Texas, it's very rare. But let me give you a little history of Houston. This is just an example of the go it alone, secessionist, anti-government, when they call it the Lone Star State, it was an apt nickname.
Yeah.
The city of Houston, for example, came into existence because of the hurricanes in the city of Galveston back
Right.
in the day, and
Wiped it out.
everybody moved to Houston. And Houston, you would think Houston would have the nickname Astro City or Space City or something like that, but that's not the case. Houston's nickname is the Bayou City, and the reason it's the Bayou City is because, if I'm not mistaken, it was the federal engineers that went in there and dug all these bayous out so that to create land. And what city of Houston done over the years, because of their anti-government regulation mantra, they went in and built tons of subdivisions and apartment complexes because the city was booming back in the 80s, and
Right.
they built all these properties in floodplains. So every
Right.
time it rains a good day or two in Houston, that city floods. I mean, the floods in Houston are historic.
Legendary.
They're legendary. And
Mm.
that's just another example. This power
Fort
grid
Benning.
situation is just another example of that Texas bravado that
Yeah,
we
well, and
that we're
I mean, it looks like it's historically, intellectually, unemployed. In other words, they're great at, strutting around and declaring that no one's going to tell them what to do. But it seems when they keep their own counsel, they end up screwing themselves. In other words, they're, you know, arrogant and incompetent. It's a bad combination.
Right. Well, this behavior, my brother Chris. Hey, look, and by the way, I appreciate you being on the show with me tonight. And if I'm not mistaken,
didn't want to miss it for the world. Didn't want to miss it for the world. I zipped back from the supermarket, got my thing, and
if I'm not
There he is. I see
mistaken,
him.
if I'm not mistaken, Luecynthia Keener's done popped in on us.
here we go.
Hi, Cindy. How are you?
Hello, Cynthia. Cynthia
Can you
here.
hear us? I don't think she can hear us.
I heard her. Tell her. I can see her right here.
Yeah, I
Hi,
can see you.
I can see
Hey,
her.
Cindy, make sure your mic's turned on, hon. Turn your mic on.
No, there you go. Now she's breaking up a little bit.
Hey. While they're getting that figured out, I tell you what, let's do. I tell you what, let's do. I don't know.
The problem
if
is mine's working, but I can't hear them.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
We can hear you. You need to put your headphones on.
So your speakers right now are set to play back through the microphone.
Okay, I tell you what. While she's doing that, let's play this. I don't know if this clip's going to work, but let's try it.
Give it a shot. Let's see. Go for it. It either will or it won't. I'm going to tell you right now. Here we go. There's the clip. Now let's see if we can get the sound. Yeah, here we go. I hear it. We got it.
Hey, Luecynthia.
Hey there, Johnny.
I heard you. Hey, there she is. Yes, hold on. Hey.
There we go.
Hey, you guys, how can I share this? You got it already? Okay, John's got it. Never mind. John's ahead.
All right.
Okay. All right. First of all, Luecynthia Keener is a valued member of the House of Public Discourse. We call her Cindy. She was the host of Bernie Time. You're not going to meet a more down-to-earth, straightforward political advocate than one Luecynthia Keener. But why I'm so glad that you're on the show tonight, Cindy, is you've been living in Houston. You know what's going on. You saw what was going on in that town. And I've lived there myself. And what we were just talking about before you came in, I let the audience know that you were running a little behind, that you guys had just got out of your cocoon, and you guys were just now being able to get out and roam around a little bit. But Cindy, what was it like? Tell us.
Well,
what was it like?
Okay. Let me tell you what it was like. As things were happening, right, and as I was hearing the electricity go out in different areas, of course, in the Houston area, and just in Texas, where electricity would go out. As I'm sitting here realizing that for us, we are going to be able to handle it, right? I mean, there's a way that we can make it through it, but that doesn't mean that in other areas of Houston that they can make it. There are people out there right now that are struggling so hard that for them to be able to make it. So for me, even though it was miserable, it was cold because whenever our lights went out, then and it's cold, it's cold. Our heat, pretty miserable. I don't know if anybody understands really honestly what it's like to be cold and freezing, but it's pretty freaking miserable. And so, you get as much as you can to get warm, but you can only do so much, right? Yeah. And so as we were going through what we had to go through, in my mind, and what hurt me the most wasn't the fact that I was freezing, but it's the fact how many homeless people out there, because in Beaumont, they did not open the shelters in Beaumont, Texas for those homeless people. I don't know if you know that or not, but Beaumont did not open. And the reason why was because they said they were not prepared. Come on. Right. You knew in advance, and you should have been prepared. That should be your job, right? So I heard about that had occurred. So the whole thing is that during this whole time, going through what we did, even though there are some of us that are able to make it through, right? Even though we're freezing our butts off, there are others that are in so much worse shape that if you're somebody that cares, it's going to bother you.
Yeah, well, Cindy, let me jump in here real quick. Well, I want people to realize something, that Houston is an extremely humid climate.
Yes.
It's in a longitude, latitude very similar to that of South Florida. So there's a lot of humidity in the air. And when that stuff gets cold, when that stuff freezes, it's worse than being up north in Michigan. It's cold. I
can imagine.
Yeah,
also to your point, Cindy, because I know this from my own practical experience, Houston, Texas is one of the largest cities in America for attracting homeless people because of the climate, because there are many services there like search. There's that big shelter down the Star of Hope, I think is what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
The Star of Hope shelter. And what people don't realize is that people from all over the country sojourn to Houston to be homeless because of the climate.
Yes.
And I was one of those people way back a long time ago, and I was very concerned for the homeless community in Houston. And now that you're telling me what went on in Beaumont. Oh my God.
Yeah, they did not open. They did not open the the shelters in Beaumont. No, because they were not prepared. You know, they were.
Well, there's 5,000. So there's 5,000 people on the street. 5,000 people on the street in sub-freezing weather. I mean,
and the city of Beaumont was not prepared to go out and help them out. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Cindy.
So the whole thing is that, you know, it's pretty, and you sit down and you hear the numbers of people that have passed away, right? But the thing is, there are those that are nameless. There are those out there that people don't know their name, and they're out there homeless, right? I'm pretty sure there are those that have died or passed away due to the cold that we're not going to hear. That number count is not going to be in that count. You know, what about some of the elderly out there? You know, what about the elderly that people have not gotten to because it's cold? And the thing is, if you don't have electricity, and if you're not able to be, you know, where we were, you know, it's you know, you sit back and you think it's not right, you know. And the thing is that the thing that came to my mind constantly was this did not have to occur as it did.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know,
it was avoidable. It was avoidable with some planning.
Well, let me read something. Let me read something I wrote today from an article we published in the House of Public Discourse Radio.com today.
Let's hear it.
This behavior is why the number one energy producing state in the country could not produce enough power to keep its people safe and warm. Several contributing factors are responsible, but the bottom line is that a naturally occurring crisis was exuberated due to the state's secessionist orientation, not being prepared, like Cynthia was talking about. According to experts, the state electric grid was not prepared for the surge in demand that resulted from the storms below freezing temperatures. The harsh conditions caused many gas-fired plants to break down just as demand was growing, and wind turbines stopped working on account of the weather conditions. Government decisions not to require equipment upgrades to withstand freezing temperatures, combined with decades of independence, left the system unprepared, just as you're talking about.
Yes, and Johnny, I don't know, you probably know about this, but when you hear ERCOT, for example, that they did not winterize, you know, generators, right? That is their responsibility. That was okay. For example, that we've had three other storms, and I think one was in 1996, 2011, And at that time, if you go and you look at 2011 and in 1996, I believe it was, and there was another one too. They were told that exactly to prepare.
It was
so if they were told in 2011 and they didn't do it.
2011.
Right.
I just read it today.
There you did 2011, right? And so if they did not do that, why? Where's the responsibility? I mean, if they had 3 times to get their ducks in the row and they didn't do it, why are we going to allow them to do that again? Because we shouldn't. People die.
People's lives are on the line.
People's lives are on the line.
And they're being very cavalier, very Philistine to put profit ahead. I mean, to have a for-profit and energy grid is ridiculous anyway. Usually the energy costs about 14 cents, like 14% like for a megahertz. And then it went up to like $5,000. I mean, so the people got taken to the cleaners. A lot of them had automatic feeds on their accounts. So as much as came out, it just came right out of their bank accounts. This guy woke up, he had lost $17,000. I mean, because he had an automatic feed to his energy provider on his bank account. And a lot of people, were being told, disengage your automatic payment with, or you're going to end up with no money. But some people weren't quick enough. What are those people going to do? Now they're talking about the federal government's going to go and pay off these energy people. How did that work? And now the federal government's going to give this guy, the $30,000 an hour that they charged. So the guy won't have to pay it, but we're going to pay Texas and these robber barons, $30,000 an hour because they were able to basically set up a non-regulatory agency that could charge as much as it wanted,
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the ERCOT, I can't remember what they're called. The commission. There's 3. Yeah. What? Say it again.
Abbott was the guy that set up the
thank you. Exactly. Yeah. So that's my point. Abbott is the one that sets up the 3 that sit on the commission board. I forgot what that's called. That deals with ERCOT.
Yes, there were. The 3 amigos, they call them.
Yes. And so the whole point comes down to this. I want people to think about this, okay? How important it is for all of us to understand, those that are in power, right? For us to make sure that we are involved. Because if Governor Greg Abbott cannot do his job, correct? He should have the position that he's in. Right. He should not have that position. And right now, say that again.
He should have resigned the minute that they found out that he had allowed this to happen. He should have stepped down. I mean, he's grossly incompetent. He's obviously trying to blame windmills and, antiquated equipment that they could have winterized, 2011? I mean, this is going back decades of neglect.
It is decades. It is. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yep. It is.
I tell you what, guys, I've got the answer to your question about
here we go. Go ahead.
The name of that agency, it's the Texas Interconnected System.
Guys,
check this out from our publication today. In contrast with other states, Texas elected to separate its power grid from other grids. A decision that gives to its famous Texas Succeeds bumper sticker and the nickname Too Many Texans, the Lone Star State is an apt nickname. During World War II, several Texas utilities band together to form the Texas Interconnected System to remain out of federal regulators' reach. And that's what you were talking about, Cindy.
Yes. And yes.
And by being a separate entity and not crossing state lines, the Texan power grid is free from federal oversight and free to help other states. But, however, our research in the House of Public Discourse found when Hurricane Sandy struck the New York metropolitan region in October 2012, Texas representatives in Congress blocked any federal aid to the states.
Yeah, Ted Cruz in particular.
Yes, that's exactly right. And however, this also means that Texans can no longer rely on others to save them.
To help them. In other words, California had spare energy.
That is exactly what happened. They couldn't help you guys, Cindy, because your grid is not connected.
And California had a surplus of energy, could have heated all those homes, not even a problem, without even charging you. Newsom could have just let them have the energy as an emergency measure and been reimbursed by the federal government. Couldn't even help Texas. Couldn't even help them. So people had to die. So people had to die for that. Wow.
Yeah, and those people that have died, it's like this is something that we just can't go like they did in 2011 and 1996 and ignore it.
Oh no.
It's something like this is something.
That's exactly right.
The death toll is going to go up too.
Yes. And there are nameless. There are those people that are nameless that we're not going to know that they did die from it. The homeless, they don't have a name for us to hear them. They just died. So there's so many more that have died from it. And yet, if we allow them, there's a Public Utility Commission. Is a 3-member panel appointed by the governor.
Right.
It's called the Public Utility Commission. If we sit here,
You know who?
I've
got the guy's name. Who I wrote an article earlier this week. I've got the guy's name that runs that daggone thing. They changed it to that name. That thing that I mentioned. They changed it to the name you're talking about.
They changed. Yes, they did. Yes, because that was back then. Yes, yeah.
Well, the name that I threw out there was one that was the original, and then it upgraded into what we're talking about.
Yes.
Now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so you have ERCOT, right? And did you know that the members on ERCOT that their names are, I don't know if you know about this or not, but their names have now been removed publicly, and they are supposed to bring those names back.
Yeah. And we also found out that Ted Cruz, his wife with Goldman Sachs, actually has a very large portfolio and share in these very same energy companies in Texas. So if you want to know where,
all you gotta do, just it's, you're right. Just follow exactly where it's all coming from.
There's a pattern of neglect, but also profiteering.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's first of all, that's the point I want to. That's the major point that we're trying to make here, and I don't want to be guilty of coloring all Texans with a broad brush, because not everybody in Texas has this mentality. There are good people in Texas.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is absolutely.
I've met some of the best people.
Yes.
In my down and out days, I would not have ever come up if it wasn't for the love of Texans. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to bring on the impressions that, hey, we're here knocking on people from Texas. But,
no. We're talking about the government.
But there is a correlation about who we elect to office. And there is a mentality there in that state. And I know Cindy knows I'm telling the truth here. Mm-hmm. The state's fierce independence was born from its origin story in the 1830s, when colonists in Texas felt central government was too restrictive and launched a war of independence. During the Mexican army siege of the Alamo, today's San Antonio, nearly all its defenders died, including frontiersman James Bowie with that big old knife, Davy Crockett. However, it prompted the rally cry, "Remember the Alamo." And that was the catalyst for Sam Houston's quick victory and establishment of Texas independence. 10 years later, of course, the U.S. annexed Texas. But the Lone Star State slogan, "Don't mess with Texas," originally supposed to deter littering, but molded into a state renowned mocked for its braggadocio, Texas has been messed with. And it's been messed with in a big way, and it was called zero temperatures. It's endemic conservative culture in Texas clings to climate denial. You know as well as I do, Cindy, there's a lot of people in Texas who think climate change is a hoax.
There is many. There is many.
They gotta be kidding. They gotta be kidding.
Yeah.
After that flood that wiped out, I mean, how many homes were lost in that bloody flood because the floodplain, the waters are rising in the Gulf. I mean, this is rocket science.
Because Christopher, I believe that so many people think that, oh, well, that happened 20 years ago like that. Oh, that happened. Well, didn't that happen back there but then you know what? They're right. Yes, there are those cases that did happen back then. But this is the thing. Now, when we look at where we're going, there's more, right?
There's more incidents, and they're getting more and more serious.
It's more things coming.
More serious.
It's more serious. Absolutely. So climate change is real. It is. But you know what I think, you guys? I honestly believe that the only way things are going to change is for people to realize it's not about being a Republican. It's not about being a Democrat. Take that Republican off your forehead. Take the Democrat off your forehead. Because that's what's killing all of us. It's the fact that stand together, because we live in oligarchs. I mean, an oligarchy. That's what we've come. The lobbyists, the money that's involved in Ted Cruz. My God, do you know how much money the man is making? Did he get that money by doing his job in office for the people? Absolutely not.
No way. His wife is making $200 million a year or something obscene. No, he's actually put more of a emphasis in Texas in stopping their progress, being able to reach out to their own citizens. It's made the government a for-profit enterprise run by basically legalized robber barons, people that are able to make a profit.
Exactly.
Of the public.
Yeah. While the rest of us, have to struggle. And as more climate change, it's going to get worse. And I think the education and the awareness for people to realize, let's stop the fighting, mostly in Texas. Well, I am a conservative. I am a Republican, and I need my guns, and I don't believe in climate change. Well, my God, they're going to be the next ones rolling down the street when there's a flood.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean,
yes. Hey, Cindy. Hey, check this out to show you just how right and spot on you are. Mr. Ed Hirs, I think I'm pronouncing that right. He spells his last name Hirs, a professor of energy and economics at the University of Houston, said this: there was no significant follow-up. They limped along and under investment and neglected it till the system finally broke under predictable. Now that's the key words. I'm a writer.
Circumstances.
Exactly right. Words matter to me, and words are profound. And this was a predictable circumstance.
It was,
meaning it could have been avoided.
An ounce of prevention with a pound of cure. And they were told point blank.
Yes.
That they had to upgrade and winterize, and they were saying, oh, we're being picked on by the federal government. They're trying to tell us what to do. What they're trying to do is actually save lives, save time, save money. But, the local boards and the government were going to have none of it, And what did they do? They consigned their citizens to unbelievable suffering, people, burning furniture in their fireplaces, and a very tragic death toll. That was avoidable.
I can give you an example.
Go ahead.
Greg Abbott got up there bumping his gums, beating his chest, talking about look what the wind turbines did and blah blah blah. Well, I got news for you. I did the study on it. In Iowa, -17 below, Miss
Yes,
Cindy.
I read that.
-17 below, but they winterized their windmills, and they did not freeze up.
They did not freeze up. Yeah.
It was a predictable circumstance that could have been avoided.
Of course not.
Are you eating over there, man? Hey, well,
I'm grabbing my popcorn, man.
Hey, well, look, this is grassroots media, baby. This is what we're all about here. And
coffee here.
Yeah, and to give you an example of what we're trying to say here, although frozen wind turbines contributed to the crisis, a drastic drop in natural gas production.
Small amount.
Texas' primary fuel source was a far larger contributor. Abbott, fellow Republican legislators, and conservative media have pointed fingers at the Green New Deal proposed solar energy policies. The Brattle Group, an energy consultatory thing that advised Texas on its power grid, said wind turbines operate as expected. The problem was an order of magnitude much smaller, like you're talking about, Cindy, than those with natural gas, coal, and nuclear power.
14%. It was 14% against the rest of the grid. And there are the ones, I mean, the water froze in the nuclear power plants. The water froze. I mean, good God. That is like,
and to bring this kind of into focus, what we're talking about as far as the Texas bravado. Some Republican leaders have failed to rise to the occasion by employing a strategy that invokes the state's independent mindset.
Rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Rise to the occasion. Yeah, they went to Cancun. They went to Cancun.
Well,
they rose to the occasion on a United plane.
Yeah,
flew out of town.
This guy Tim Boyd, a Colorado mayor, told residents complaining about cold weather that no one owes you or your family anything.
Yeah. I forgot about that one.
He has had to resign from that.
They were going to lynch him. Yeah, they're going to lynch that guy. I mean, that is outrageous.
And then, and then to your point, Mr. Chris, while the Arctic storm battered Texas, Senator Cruz, one of the loudest, and I tried to be professional here and say loudest. He's got the biggest mouth of any conservative voice in Texas. Okay, he's a big.
He really does. He doesn't have much to say. Doesn't have much to say, but he keeps saying it. Let me tell you.
He's got a big mouth. He left his constituents alone and flew to Cancun, Mexico, like you're talking about, and he's called. There's a lot of people calling for him to resign.
He should resign immediately. And Ocasio-Cortez is down there with $3 million, and Beto's out there calling seniors. They're doing food banks, getting people seen, especially seniors who've got nobody. They're out there abandoned, and Cruz and this guy Gates took his private plane, and another guy from Texas took his private plane and flew off to, I think it was Florida, But meanwhile, Ocasio-Cortez comes down and's got $3 million. She's there with 18 organizations doing food banks, doing it. I mean, this is ridiculous. The actual...
Cindy.
Yes.
Please.
What is the mood like in Houston right now? That I know you guys are just crawling out of the deep freeze.
Tar and feather Ted Cruz. Tar and feather him and light him out of town.
Well, exactly.
On a rail.
I think we were talking before you came on the show, Cindy. We've had some what we call in the House of Public Discourse, some spotlight moments. We and you had, we were talking about, Facebook's got the algorithms where me and you don't get to see each other as much as we used to.
Right.
But we've had some spotlight moments. We saw we've been talking about for years now the changing demographics in the South. We saw Georgia turn blue. I felt like that was a spotlight moment. We saw a president try to have a coup and steal election.
Still trying.
We saw his people storming the White House. That was a spotlight moment. I feel like this is a spotlight moment.
And you know that as things continue, I believe that people are going to actually honestly start thinking about what they're thinking. I'm seriously, I believe that there are, because I'll tell you what, I know Republicans now that did not vote for Trump. I know Republicans that said, you know what, I'm not doing it. I'm gonna go vote for Biden. But the thing is, though, is that Biden we have to hold them accountable too. That's a whole different subject. We get on that.
Right.
We can get on that one later. But the
Right.
thing is, though, is that, you know what? It's what we want is very simple. It's an easy thing to. It's so simple. Number one, hold those people that are in power, those seats of power. Let's hold them accountable.
That's
it. And it doesn't make a difference if it's a Democrat. Doesn't make a difference if it's a Republican.
That's right.
We hold them accountable because in reality, they're all oligarchs right now. The majority.
It's called neoliberalism. They're neoliberals.
They're in there for themselves.
That's right.
They're in there for
play into the bank. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, right towards the bank, exactly. So I think there's a lot of work ahead of us. It's just kind of scary because I think as we go along, climate change is real, and things are only going to get worse. And the thing is, reaching as many people as we can, as much as we can, before we're really deep.
Well, that is our mission. That is our mission here in the House of Public Discourse. It's
for us to be honest.
It's for us to discourse the facts and not the hyperbole. It's not trying to be over the top. It's trying to, and that's why I'm so glad you're on the show, because I wanted to introduce you because for example, one of my top admins in my group, Cynthia Harrell Collins, I met her on Bernie Time.
Did you?
One of my best friends on Facebook. We don't talk a lot, just like me and you. We don't see each other's posts. Jennifer Vickers. Do you remember Jennifer?
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Me and her are outstanding friends, and you have got such a great take on things, and it's really good to have you on this program. Now, let me ask you this: moving forward, what is the state of Texas going to have to do, Cynthia, in your point of view, because we almost turned Texas blue? We remember how we were until Bernie. We were talking about, I think Texas is going blue. And you know what? We got a lot of daggone votes this past time in Texas.
Exactly. I can see it happening. I can see it happening. But Biden and his administration, they better get on the ball. That means they need to make sure Biden needs to do what's right.
Yeah.
Because people, it kind of scares me sometimes. People need help with COVID. Let's get it done. It's simple.
Yeah. True.
You know how, and Chris Diamont knows this more than anybody, that I am day to day with Biden. I was a Bernie guy and will always be a Bernie guy. But we did many shows, Luecynthia, Cindy, about the changing demographics and the fact that we had Joe Biden is in office because of non-white voters and progressives like myself, Chris, and you, who held our nose and voted for him, even though
and those Republicans, and there's been Republicans too, Johnny, that did not vote for Trump. There were Republicans that did not want to vote for Biden. They did not want to vote for Biden, but they weren't going to vote for him again. They were not going to vote for Trump. He was the lesser of the two evils to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of work. We got a lot of work ahead of us.
We have
a lot of work, exactly. And I think one of the things that people have a tendency to do is people have a tendency to forget. It's like, oh, okay, well, it was so awful a couple of days ago. So then people are going to go on and we're not going to hold anybody accountable.
Yeah.
I think that's what's wrong. I think that we don't want to forget. We want to hold those people accountable because we have to. Because if just like ERCOT in 1996, 2011, there was another year too. They were told to winterize. They didn't do it. Why not? Why wasn't it done? If it was done, would this have happened?
And there's been no penalty. There's been no penalty.
And there's no penalties.
They weren't held.
Absolutely.
They weren't held because there was no and there's been no repercussions.
No deregulation.
No. Well, now there's going to be, but it's a little bit late now. with people, having burned their furniture in their fireplaces. So what we've ended up with is a tragedy, and it's a tragedy for one very good reason. Didn't have to happen. The people next door, Iowa and everything else, their wind turbines were working in 17 degree below zero. Why? Because they're winterized. The other places had stuff that was even colder, and they worked just fine. We had this idiot, Mr. Abbott, saying that the reason that we were in this fix is because of renewable green energy, which is a complete partisan lie. He's turned it into a political charade, and like what, to score points with Mr. Trump or the vestiges
or his lobbyists. I mean, he probably gets money from the oil and gas.
It's the largest contributor.
Yes.
That was another article I wrote earlier this week. The oil and gas industry by far is the leading backer for Abbott. I wrote an article. I can't remember the exact title. It was the Texas energy crisis is facing its biggest backer. The biggest backer is one of the reasons that stuff happened in Texas, because I don't mean this ugly, but I would not stick my big toe in the Galveston Bay.
Well, that's not a bad idea.
When you go into actually, if you're driving down Interstate 10, once you get out of the state of Florida and once you get on the Gulf Coast around Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and in Houston, Beaumont, and Houston, Port Arthur, it smells like a chemical plant down there.
Oh,
Tyson.
I'll tell you guys. You guys ready for? Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Cindy. You got
okay. Did I tell you? My brother and my sister-in-law, they live very close to chemical plants. Okay, and so what happened was, they got up one morning when it was like the first time we had a little bit of snow on the ground, because of course in Texas we don't get that. So they opened the door to go look at it. Do you know, the smell was so bad that they couldn't enjoy it. They couldn't get out there, and their eyes burned. So you have to wonder, what was it that they had burned off? Why was it that their eyes burned? What was released?
Chlorine. That's chlorine. That's chlorine. If their eyes were burning, that's chlorine.
Their eyes are burning.
Well, I mean,
we don't know. We don't know what was released. We don't know, because I mean, they're right there with so many plants. There's so many plants there. We don't know
the temperature being that low. The temperature being that low, it probably did not burn off, which they usually have is like a fire, which burns off the excess.
Right, the flares.
If it's too cold, that fire did not burn off, so the stuff is just being pumped right into the air directly, which means, I mean, if their eyes were burning, I mean, it's going into their bodies. No doubt about it. I'm just hoping it wasn't like a heavy dose. But if your eyes are burning, that's toxic. Well, it's toxic.
Okay, guys, we got to think about starting to wrap this up. I try to keep the shows about an hour, and believe it or not, we've been going on. But I want to end. But we're not going. I'm going to get some final comments from you, Cindy, and you, Chris. But I want to finish out with a little something here. That I wrote today. By proposing a strategy that invokes the state's independence, Republican politicians have failed to rise to the occasion. Unlike other states, Texas decided to separate its primary grid from other grids because of its famous go-it-alone attitude. Cruz first blamed the decision on wanting to be a good father to his daughter, who wanted to take a trip while school was canceled, before acquiescing and quickly returning to Texas to face both storms now. Texans within the province were outraged by Boyd's callous remarks, and the mayor resigned Tuesday. Is that a signal that Texas has reached a point where they decide Texas tough is not, no longer the law? Probably not, but I am hopeful that this is a spotlight moment, that more and more people will realize that privatization. Privatization. Excuse me, I didn't pronounce that right. Excuse me. That is not the way to go. If you think ExxonMobil cares more about you than Bernie Sanders, I got news for you.
They don't know. They really don't know. That's
yeah.
Ocasio-Cortez is down there with $3 million. We can tell who cares.
Yes, right. That's right. Now, Cindy, closing remarks. I want you to say whatever, but here's the thing. You guys in Texas have been through one heck of a couple of days. And we're so glad that you guys and others have come out. We feel very, remorseful and sorry for the families that lost loved ones. What do we got to do, Cindy, in closing, to change Texas? Because I really believe it can be a blue state, and I think that the demographics are changing. Do we have a shot at the midterms of getting some progressives in office?
I would say the answer to that is yes, but I think it's going to take a lot of work. I think that, sometimes things are so built within somebody that there's a mentality that I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian, I'm a Republican, and I'm going to go down and vote Republican. There is no concept of what they're voting for. But let me tell you what's really amazing, though. This is what's amazing, is that if you look back, I was never political until Bernie Sanders. And you sit there and you realize, oh my God, I have to step up. If I don't step up, if my voice isn't out there, because there are people that can't do what we're doing. What you're doing, Johnny, what you're doing, Christopher, there are so many people that can't do what we're doing, right? But that's okay. The thing that for those of us that can speak, for those of us that can use what we feel like we can use, then I think that if we do that, then we can bring education. That it's so important. Education and awareness, to me, is so important for people to understand that. And so I think we can do it, but I don't think it's going to be easy. It's going to come with a lot of work. And I also think I also feel that Biden needs to step up to the plate. He needs to use Bernie Sanders' agenda. If they truly care, which, that's how I feel. Biden needs to use Bernie Sanders' agenda. Medicare for all.
To get that Medicare for all and also green energy for all, especially in Texas.
Exactly.
Especially in Texas.
Okay.
So yes, it can be done. It can be done with us doing the work and getting people out there, education and awareness. So can it happen? Yes, I do. I think right now with what happened, people need to understand who is ERCOT. They need to understand who are the people that are in these positions. How much money are they being paid? I know $883,000 in 2018. The main guy with ERCOT, I think that was in 2018. $883,000. They're a nonprofit organization. ERCOT is, do they know these people that are in those positions? Who are the ones? And do they live in Texas? No, they don't. 5 of them do not. Why are they in those positions? The reason why people are in the positions that they are in is because we, the people, have not been involved. I think that it's time for all of us to be involved.
Amen.
Amen to that. You see why I brought her on the program.
But she's there. But she's there. She's like watching it happen in real time. I mean, we couldn't have a better witness.
That's exactly right.
And I care. And you have to care. You have to have compassion. You have to care for the people. That's really what it's about.
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank you for coming on the program, Cindy. I hope this is not the last time. I hope you'll come back and join us again.
Tell us what happens. Tell us what happens.
All me and Chris are is a bunch of news hounds, That's all we do.
News junkies. News junkies.
Well, ask John about me. John, am I a news junkie?
Absolutely.
There you guys go. I am.
What's up, Big John? What you doing hiding behind the camera? You should be out there.
Yeah. I see him over there. Yeah, he's over there. Yeah, I see him.
He has to put up with He has to put up with me, you guys.
Yeah.
There we go.
But, Once again, we want to thank everybody out there watching tonight. It's been a really fun show. We've been talking about the Texas freeze right here on the all-new House of Public Discourse Radio.com, inside the House of Public Discourse forum on your Facebook page. So everybody have a nice evening, and
thank you guys.
We see you on the flip side.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, John.